Hey, what's up? It's me, it's minimme, it's Peter, it's whatever you want to call me. I'm just thinking of doing this little off-the-cuff video because the 20-game lineup for the PS1 Classic was just released. And I've made all my little notes here. I'm gonna do my whole personal take on what I think should be on the list. I actually don't think the list they came up with was that horrible. I think there's some pretty interesting games on there. But I will agree that it doesn't justify the price tag of the PS1 Classic at all. But I guess if you're buying a PS1 Classic, it's probably just to look nice on your shelf anyway, because just emulate whatever you want to play, seriously. But yeah, I'm gonna fix this list. So my personal biases will come into play like so much here. I really like racing games, and I haven't played all the games on the PS1 or anything, but I have played a lot of them, and I played a few in preparation to make this video. And yeah, I'm just gonna start from the top alphabetically on my notes and let you know what I think should be on the list. And it's completely biased, completely terrible. I do try and stay away from unrealistic things like things that have like licensed cars in it or licensed music. So no Tony Hawk's or Gran Turismo or Need for Speed or any of that. But I probably still included something with licensed music by accident, but you know, whatever.
Let's just get to it.
First on this list is a game called Battle Arena Toshinden, which is an interesting game because it was a really early 3D fighter and it included like sidestepping in it, and that's super interesting. It was also credited as being one of the first weapons fighters, which I think is kind of cool. So that's why it's kind of an interesting pick, and you'll start to notice that they included a lot of games just because they're historically interesting, but they're not interesting games themselves. Like, I've played this game briefly, albeit, but it's not like it holds up super well. It's a game you play because you're like, this is old and interesting and influential, but I don't want to play any more of it. There's probably some fans out there that I've just completely upset, but the game I've replaced it with is this game, which is Soul Blade, or Soul Edge if you're an American, I think, which is basically the spiritual successor to Battle Arena Toshinden. I was tossing up between adding some other fighters like Street Fighter Alpha 3 or Dead or Alive or Virtua Fighter or any like Virtua Fighter 2 or something, because they're all great fighting games, but I think Soul Blade has got that historically interesting factor because of, like, you know, the Soul Calibur series, as well as being a really fun game and a huge evolution on Battle Arena Toshinden, and you know, just a good old time with a really interesting single player mode that I think you should check out. Next game is Cool Borders 2, which is a decent pick. It's not a super strong pick, right? It's not like a 10 out of 10 absolute PlayStation classic, but I'm actually gonna leave this one on the list. Thumbs up for Cool Borders 2, because you know how I sometimes talk about how like average games sort of give you more of an experience of what a console feels like. Like, if you're playing a bunch of mediocre or average or even good but not outstanding games on a console, you really sort of get the feel of what your average game on that console feels like, and it gives you a sort of more complete PS1 or any console experience. And I think that Cool Borders 2 is kind of a perfect game for that, which I know is a really bad reason. It should just be like superstars on this list, but you know, this is my list, I'm ruining it myself. And Cool Borders 2, pretty fun game, right? Like, I know a lot of people like love it. Like, it's a game that is a childhood classic for a lot of people. Personally, I would replace this with like a Tony Hawk's game or Thrasher's Skate and Destroy, which will serve a similar purpose, but they have licensed music, so no go. But yeah, that's the reason. Followed by another game that's in the list for the same reason, which is Destruction Derby, which I'm not leaving in, but I like that they've included it. I think Destruction Derby is a really fun game, better than Cool Borders 2. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that the weird thing about this pick is they didn't pick Destruction Derby 2, which is basically just Destruction Derby but far better. So for me, I'm replacing Destruction Derby with its sequel. The next one is Final Fantasy VII, which I really like Final Fantasy VII. Everyone, well, not everyone does. A lot of people hate Final Fantasy VII, but it's a quintessential PS1 game. It's a very high quality game. I like it, good pick, keep it. Next one's Grand Theft Auto, which I'm gonna take off the list. Even though it's Grand Theft Auto, I just think that the first two games, like, if they weren't that, they sold pretty well, but they weren't like super huge games on the PS1. I do actually have memories of playing them on PS1 as a kid at someone's house, so they must have at least had some reach. But personally, I don't find them to be that great games, and I think a much more appropriate game to put on this list is Driver. So Driver's my pick for that, which I picked over 2 because I think Driver 1's more accessible, you know, it holds up better. And now we already have 2 Reflections interactive games on the list, but you know, personal bias. Yeah, so the next game is Intelligent Qube, with a Q, which is a game that I had to play before making this video because I'd never played it before. And it's really quite good. I really like its style, its soundtrack, it's sort of minimalist and goofy, and I like it quite a lot, but I'm not going to include it in this list. I almost did, but I just think that like, it's an obscure game for people that like puzzle games, and I don't think that that'll reach everyone. I mean, go out, find Intelligent Qube, it's quite expensive, but find Intelligent Qube and play it, because it's really quite good, but I'm just going to completely replace it with something else in Crash Team Racing, which is ridiculous that it isn't on this list, because Crash Team Racing is the best Crash product ever released. Oh, I actually have it here somewhere. Here you go. I figure I should be holding up games more. There's Crash Team Racing. There's Final Fantasy VII. Here's Grand Theft Auto. Jesus. I prepared all this stuff, but I didn't. Here's Destruction Derby 2. I even have Driver here as well, which, I mean, like, what am I doing, mate? I set up this whole video thinking, show off all my collection, but now I've just like pretty much exhausted everything that I brought with me up onto this desk. But you know what, whatever, moving on. The next game is Jumping Flash, which I also had to play for this video, and it's this weird like acid dream first-person platformer. It's so strange. It feels so 90s. I kind of like it, but it's very well regarded, and it's considered very influential, which is kind of like Battle Arena Toshinden, but it's not a game that I think that most people would want to go back and play. It's mostly like gaming historians would want to go back and play Jumping Flash. So I've just replaced it with Wipeout 3 because it's Wipeout 3. It's a fantastic game. And already we're full of car games, but you know, it was a great time for car games, and I love car games. The kind of gamers that talk about games on the internet seem to gloss over racing games a lot, and I think that the PS1 and the PS2 were just mint for racing games, so we're gonna drown in them on our PS1 Classic, on the minimme branded PS1 Classic. The next game is Metal Gear Solid, which I have in this stack, but I'm not gonna bother picking it up because I've already screwed that all up. But Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2 are like 2 of my favorite games. Like, they're just, to me, they're basically perfect. I know they're not for everyone, but to me they're perfect, and I'm obviously gonna include that. The next one is Mr. Driller, which is fun, right? Like, I played this a bit before doing this video, and Mr. Driller is really fun. I enjoy it quite a lot. When I think of Mr. Driller, I don't think of it as a PS1 game. I actually think of it as a Dreamcast game. So I don't think it sort of fits the whole like PS1 branding, I guess. It doesn't give me a PS1 vibe, and it's a good game. It's not an amazing sort of mind-blowing game. It's a good game, but I've replaced it with Tomb Raider, which obviously does fit the PS1 vibe way better. I don't love Tomb Raider, actually. I think that it doesn't hold up very well at all, but as far as being like a PS1 game that people will want to play, that you should probably try because it's sort of this cool old thing, it's where it all started, Tomb Raider is a great pick, I think. Now the next one is Oddworld Abe's Oddysee, which, interesting pick. I think Oddworld is a very impressive game artistically and stylistically, but I don't really like it that much. Like, I find it cool, I find it kind of interesting, but I don't enjoy playing it as much as a lot of people do, and I know a lot of people have great memories with it that I don't. I can see why they picked it, and honestly, it's a pretty solid pick for this, but this is my personal list, of course. So I've replaced it with something equally as dreary, or moody, or maybe even more dreary, with Silent Hill, that I think is just a lot more iconic and a lot more not interesting of a game, but maybe I think a lot more people would want to go back and play than Oddworld, especially because Oddworld's like coming out on everything and it's on Steam and they remade it in HD. People can play Oddworld everywhere. And Silent Hill, I think the first one is actually quite hard to get a hold of and play, so that's my pick there. The next one is Rayman. Another good pick, but I'm taking it out. Rayman's good, it's very beautiful. I don't really think of it as a PS1 game. I thought about replacing it with Rayman 2, because I think Rayman 2 is, I don't want to say better, because Rayman 1's really good for what it is, but I just like Rayman 2 more. I like 3D platformers more than 2D platformers generally, but I didn't even replace it with Rayman 2. I also thought of Gex 3D and Croc the dinosaur with the maths games, if you remember that. But I ended up replacing this one with Spyro 2. I had to ask some people on Discord what the best Spyro PS1 game was, because to me, Spyro is just this vague memory of purple and pastel colors and flying around, and picking up diamonds and stuff, or crystals, and I asked them, and they said Spyro 2, so Spyro 2 is going in, why not, very PS1. The next game is Resident Evil, which is also a very PS1 classic kind of game. I don't love it that much, like I'm not a huge fan of Resident Evil, but of course I understand why they put it there. The only thing I'd say is maybe replace it with Resident Evil 2, because Resident Evil 1 just got like a HD re-release, and I feel like it's really fresh in everyone's mind, so why not 2? And I know a lot of people prefer 2, and I think 2 is probably a better game as well. Not that I really like any of the old Resident Evil games myself, but you know. So the next one is Revelations Persona, which is the first Persona game as far as I believe. I'm not completely sure because I haven't played it. Actually, no, I did research it and find out, but this is where it feels kind of disingenuous to take it off the list because I'm sure it's great. But when I think of like Persona, I think of later games in the series. I feel like that series kind of similar to what GTA did. I feel like that series kind of got better as it went along. So to start with, the first one is a bit weird. What I've done is just replaced it with Parasite Eve because I think Parasite Eve's a really interesting game. But I'm gonna like Parasite Eve asterisk because I feel bad getting rid of a game I've never played. I'm sure it's great, or maybe it isn't, but I don't know. I'm sorry I didn't play it, but for me, Parasite Eve is a more appealing game to go back and play if you've played neither of them, I think. So that's why I've included that there. Next game is Ridge Racer Type 4, which I really like. I think Ridge Racer Type 4 is a great pick. It's probably not the first racer you think of on the PS1, but I think it's probably my favorite Ridge Racer game. A lot of people were upset when Ridge Racer Type 4 appeared in the first sort of few games that they showed us on this list, but I think that I think it's a great pick. I think that this coming out will mean people will go back and appreciate it more, which is great because it's really good. It's a really fun arcade racer. Go back and play it. The next one is Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, which I played for this video as well. And I'd never played Super Puzzle Fighter before, and I was fully willing to go, oh, this is just another puzzle game and I'm going to take it off this list. But I played it. I loved the shit out of it. It was fantastic. It's the reason I did basically was because it's the same as sword fighting. This is like the nerdiest thing I'm ever gonna say. It's the same as sword fighting in Puzzle Pirates. It's the same game. Sword fighting ripped it off. I mean, it's not completely the same, but it's basically the same. And I really enjoy that in Puzzle Pirates. So I was so glad to like find where it kind of happened on the PS1, or maybe where it started. Maybe there was a game that did this kind of game before. But yeah, absolutely loved it. And I'm gonna leave it on the list just because it's so damn good. And if I bought one of these, that'd be the game I'd probably play the most of, to be honest. The next game is Syphon Filter, which is interesting because Syphon Filter was a huge budget, lots of marketing, like a huge release for the PS1. Kind of got overshadowed by Metal Gear Solid a lot. Syphon Filter to me was never that fantastic. I remember thinking it was good. It's okay. I haven't played heaps of it, admittedly. I think that it's probably a good pick for the list if in the same way that Cool Borders 2 is, in that it's kind of a PS1 game that a lot of people owned but no one really talks about anymore, and it sort of like gives you that kind of flavor of owning a PS1. I'm going to take it off the list and replace it with a game that I haven't played, weirdly enough, Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, which I know a lot of people really love, and I constantly get recommended that I should play it. And I know it's sort of a very impressive game for the PS1. Just personally, if I wanted an easy way to play Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver, I think if it was on the PS1 Classic, I might even buy a PS1 Classic and play it, just because so many people have recommended it to me. So I think that's what I'd put there, even though I haven't played it, weirdly enough. The next one is Tekken 3. Great pick. I mean, Tekken 3 is fantastic. There's nothing more to say. The next one is Rainbow Six, which is like a huge, like, what the fuck are you doing? That's widely regarded to be the worst version of Rainbow Six. Like, I'm pretty sure you can't even plan your routes. I've never played it because everything I've seen about it is like, yeah, this is terrible, don't play this version of Rainbow Six. Like, I saw the game rankings, like the review aggregate score of this, and it was at 48%. Like, the only reason I can think that they put this on here is because Rainbow Six Siege is so popular or something, but if this was terrible back then, how good can it be now? I did this whole recording right, and I forgot to actually mention what game I'd have in place of Rainbow Six, and that game is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which, another game I haven't played, but definitely a game that would make me buy the system because it's apparently just this absolutely legendary side-scrolling Castlevania game that everyone should play, and the graphics look amazing, the gameplay looks really smooth. I should really go play it. Yeah, moving on. The next one is Twisted Metal, which I quite like. I think it's a good pick, but I just don't know why you wouldn't pick Twisted Metal 2 over it, because Twisted Metal 2 was just like Destruction Derby 2, basically an improvement in every single way. So yeah, I'm gonna put Twisted Metal 2 in, and I think that's a good pick. It's a good multiplayer game. Finally, we have a game called Wild Arms, which I haven't played. This video is becoming pretty bad, hey. If you've made it this far, congrats. Yeah, Wild Arms, it looks great, but it doesn't scream PS1 game to me, so I've just replaced it with Legend of Dragoon, which is a much more iconic RPG on the PS1, I think, and a lot of people love it a lot more. As far as I can tell, I haven't played either of them. This list's bad. Basically, if this was my real list, I'd have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, Time Crisis Project Titan, AFL 98, AFL 99. Be glad that I at least tried here. So yeah, that's my list. I'm gonna display it on the screen. Let's see if I can hit the borders. Yeah, I'm gonna display it on the screen here. So yeah, that's the list. Hope you enjoyed this kind of just unscripted video. I just wanted to make something quick and little because I like talking about video games. I need an excuse to talk about some games I like on the PS1, and this is my excuse. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I know a lot of games missed out for like the PS1 Classic because there was so many good games on the PS1. Like I've written out this entire paragraph of honorable mentions, and it's like Gran Turismo 2, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, Ape Escape, Time Crisis, Tomba, Medieval, Crash, Tomb Raider, no, Tomb Raider's in there, Parappa, Vagrant Story, Suikoden, Armored Core, Shadow Man, A New Nightmare, Vib Ribbon, Die Hard Trilogy, Digimon World, Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories, Alien Resurrection, Final Fantasy Tactics, Clock Tower, Mazona Falls, Spider-Man, Chrono Cross, Harvest Moon, AFL, Need for Speed 3. There's so many good PS1 games that you should go out and play, and they missed out on a lot of them, and I think the main problem is there's only 20 games on this thing, and I think that everyone's going to have this wildly different expectation of all these games they played as a kid. Obviously, the list that I just made, wherever it's sitting, maybe you can see it over here, maybe you can't. So many of you are going to read that list and just be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why is there 10 racing games on your list? And I think that with that in mind, the games that they actually picked, aside from Rainbow Six, you can't completely disregard them all because, for the most part, they're really well-regarded games. Like, there's a lot of merit to these games on this list. It's like Intelligent Qube, I feel bad for taking off because it's actually quite an enjoyable game, and I think it's because it's such an expensive like collector's item now. This will come out on the PlayStation Classic, and a lot of people get to play it for the first time, and it's quite fun. And I think like Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, I wouldn't have played before this came out, and now I have played it, and like it's almost instantly one of my favorite PS1 games. It was so much fun. I think maybe lower your expectations a bit for these sort of things, but maybe just like have an open mind. These games are kind of cool. I think that Jumping, whatever it was called, Jumping Flash is actually kind of interesting. If you've never played Mr. Driller before, that's a pretty fun game. GTA, you know, GTA is a decent little thing. It's kind of a fun Rampage arcade game, and you know, if I bought this thing, I'd get to play the first Persona, which I think is really interesting. It's not, stop freaking out. But, you know, I still am not going to buy one of these things. Like, so I guess I'm a bit of a hypocrite defending it. I don't think it's worth it for me, but I think having an open mind and just looking at all these games for what they are, and it's not that bad. Calm down, everyone. That's my video. Hope you enjoyed it, and take it easy. Farewell.